Christmas can be the best time of the year, and certainly is my favourite. It can come with its terrifying horror stories, and I will share with you 3 creepy Christmas horror stories sent to me by viewers of the channel. If you enjoy scary stories, hit the subscribe button, turn off the lights, and get ready for 3 terrifying Christmas stories. It was Christmas morning, 1998. I was 8 years old. I remember Christmas Eve night. I could barely sleep a wink, being so excited for Christmas Day. Me, my brother, my mum and my dad would always watch a Christmas film together on Christmas Eve. Then we would all go to bed around 10 o'clock. I must have eventually fallen asleep and woke in the early hours. I remember thinking if it was 7 a.m, I could go to my parents' bedroom and open presents with my brother, but it was only 3 a.m. I could hear noises coming from the living room downstairs. I was young enough to still believe in Santa, and I thought it must have been him delivering presents. I snuck out of my bedroom and went downstairs as quiet as possible. I opened the living room door slowly, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Santa was in the living room, putting presents under the tree. At least, I thought he was. I said, "Santa." He turned and faced me. He looked pretty shocked to see me. He told me to go straight back to bed, and the presents will be waiting for you in the morning. I soon realised the Christmas tree that was filled with presents the night before was now nearly empty, and he was slowly putting presents in his sack. I said, "Santa, are you taking presents from the tree?" He then, in a very angry voice, told me to go to bed, and to that, I could hear footsteps coming from upstairs. They were heavy footsteps, so I knew they were coming from my dad, and to that, Santa Claus, or should I say, the man dressed as Santa, grabbed the sack of presents and ran to the living room door, down the hall to the front door, only to be confronted by my dad. I remember my dad punching Santa and took him to the ground. At this stage, my mum and brother came rushing downstairs. I sat with my mum and brother in the living room until the police arrived. We didn't speak about what happened for a few years, although I would constantly nag my dad to tell me what happened and who it was. He eventually told me a couple years later that the man dressed as Santa was one of our neighbours trying to steal presents. I remember he was quite a creepy guy who lived a couple doors down from us. He moved away only a few months after this happened, and we never heard from him ever again. For the past 6 years, I've been working as a Santa Claus at my local garden centre. Pretty much all the locals in the village knew it was me as Santa, but this one year, the garden centre decided to hire 2 Santas. I would be based inside, while the other Santa would be based outside in the car park. I thought this was a bit of a weird idea, but I went along with it. While I was getting changed, I met the other Santa in the staff changing room. I didn't recognise who he was, which I found more strange. To put into context, I live in a very small rural village in England, where pretty much everybody knows everyone. To be honest, I didn't think a lot of him. He didn't make much conversation, and all I got out of him was his name was Alex. Anyway, we got to work, but I didn't really see a lot of him, as he was based in a car park, and I was working inside, and he would rarely want to make conversation with me. After the first week, Alex stopped turning up to work. I asked the manager where Alex was, and he said he won't be coming back, as we've received quite a few serious complaints about him, so it would just be you from now on. I tried to get out of him what happened, but he wouldn't say anything. Anyway, that evening, I went to the pub, and I got talking to the barman Jake, who I knew pretty well, and he knew everything going on within the village. He said, "I'm sure you got plenty to tell me about that other Santa you've been working with." I said, I haven't heard anything. Nobody's told me what's happened, only that he's not going to be coming back due to a complaint. He said, well, he took a liking to a few of the kids' mums, and on a few occasions, followed their cars home. My wife took our little boy to see him a couple of days ago, and he followed her home. She thought it must have been you driving behind her, so she didn't take much notice. Anyway, when she got home, she got in the shower, and when she got out, she realised his car was still waiting outside the house. She then heard my son talking to somebody at the front door. She rushed downstairs and realised it wasn't you. It was that new Santa talking to my son. Things then got a little bit creepier. She told my son to go back inside and watch some TV. Realising it wasn't you, she told the Santa to please leave and never come back. He replied, saying I just wanted to get to know who Mummy was. This terrified my wife so much, she slammed the door shut and called the police immediately before letting me know what had happened. While this was going on, she noticed he was stalking the house before getting in his car to drive off. By the time I got home, he had already left. Turns out he's not from round here and was driving over an hour to get here every day. Anyway, the police called me this morning and said he won't be coming back, and if he does, he'll be getting arrested immediately. I can happily say I never saw Alex again, and it's been a few years now. The whole village just wants to put what happened behind us. We recently moved in the summer to an older house that needed renovating. The remainder of the summer was spent tearing down walls and painting the entire house, and bar a couple of bedrooms, the house was nearly complete and ready for Christmas. Our young daughter was incredibly excited for Christmas, but she would mention most weeks to seeing an old lady in her bedroom late at night. It started after a few months of living in the house. The house was a probate property, and an old lady had died in the house before the family sold it. This concerned me and my husband, and we were worried the ghost of the previous owner was haunting our house. Unfortunately, things were getting worse in the build-up to Christmas. Our daughter said the old lady would stand in the corner of her bedroom. She would scream for me and her dad most nights now at around 3 a.m. and eventually we moved it into our room and hoped this would stop, but unfortunately, it now began to involve me. It was Christmas Eve night. We put our daughter to bed. I had some friends over for dinner. It must have been around 9 p.m. when we heard a terrifying scream coming from upstairs. We all rushed to our bedroom, where she had still been sleeping up to this point, to see our daughter crying under the duvet. She said the old lady was sat at the end of the bed looking at her. We searched the entire house with her to let her know that the old lady was not here and that she had gone. She refused to go back to bed alone, so I left my husband to enjoy the evening with friends and went to bed. I put the TV on as it was still pretty early. I was drifting in and out of sleep. I could hear footsteps coming up the stairs. I thought it was my husband coming to bed. The bedroom door never opened, and so I thought he must have just gone to the bathroom. Some time had passed, and the bedroom door opened. I said, "Did you enjoy the rest of the night without me?" To no response. I turned over to see my husband was not in the room. The bedroom door was still open, which I know I closed before I went to sleep. I could still hear everybody downstairs. The TV was still on. I got up to close the door. I turned around to what I think is the most terrifying sight I have ever seen in my life. A black shadow of an elderly lady was sat on the other side of the bed, looking at my daughter. Sheer terror was engulfing my body. My heart was racing through my chest as the old lady lifted her arm and began to stroke my daughter's head. I turned the lights on to see the shadow of the woman disappear. My daughter was still asleep, and had been the whole time. I have never been the religious type, but my emotions were running high. I knelt on the side of the bed and began to pray. I asked for the elderly lady to please leave our family home, that this is now our home and we wish to live in peace. I slowly got back into bed, and we all enjoyed our Christmas day with no interruptions. I still hear random noises in the house, but it has been 3 years, and the elderly lady has not been seen in our home. I hope you enjoyed today's video of 3 real Christmas horror stories. As this will be the last video of the year, I want to take the opportunity to thank everybody that's viewed the channel, subscribed, liked our videos and shared our videos. If you're new to Mr. Fear, please click the subscribe button as we upload every Friday at 6 PM.